For months, my neighbor has been a constant source of frustration, pushing boundaries, both literally and figuratively. It all started when he aggressively confronted me about my yard, claiming it was too dry and needed watering. His tone was harsh, like a parent scolding a child. I ignored him, but his words lingered, leaving me simmering with frustration. Not long after, his behavior escalated. Despite having ample space in his own driveway, large enough to accommodate multiple vehicles, he began parking his car directly in front of my house, so close to my living room window that he could see inside. As if that weren't enough, he also stationed his motorcycle right next to my lawn, even though there were plenty of other places for him to park. It was clear he was deliberately trying to provoke me, surrounding my property with his vehicles in an attempt to make his presence impossible to ignore. When I first shared this situation, others speculated on his motives. Was he simply being difficult, or did he have some ulterior motive in making my living situation unbearable? To me, it seemed clear, he thrives on control and conflict. Narcissistic individuals love stirring chaos, and he appeared to relish every opportunity to make my life uncomfortable. But rather than give him the reaction he craved, I responded with polite indifference, smiling every time I stepped outside, refusing to give him the satisfaction of seeing me upset. Then came the most infuriating act yet. Without warning or discussion, he took it upon himself to rip up a section of my yard, bark, grass, and all, to expand his already oversized driveway. One morning, I walked outside to find a concrete truck pouring fresh pavement onto what was legally my land. He never consulted me, never arranged for a proper survey. Instead, he simply dug up the property markers himself and decided, on his own authority, where the boundary lines should be. I was stunned. Furious. This wasn't just passive-aggressive behavior anymore. It was blatant disregard for property rights. I quickly reported the issue to code enforcement, knowing that in California, tampering with property stakes is illegal. I also started looking into my legal options, knowing I couldn't let this go unchecked. Commenters urged me to act swiftly, warning that if I allowed him to continue using the space as his own, I risked losing it permanently. Some advised me to research property laws, check if he had obtained the necessary permits, which I highly doubted, and confirm how close to my property line he was legally allowed to build. One person even pointed out the presence of a silver utility box near his vehicle and suggested having protective barriers installed to prevent further encroachment. When asked why I let this happen, I could only shake my head. I hadn't let anything happen. I had woken up one day to find my yard already torn up, the damage already done. When I confronted him, he nonchalantly admitted that he hadn't bothered with a professional survey, relying instead on whatever markers he could find in the ground. As if that gave him the right to claim part of my land for himself. Now, weeks later, I've finally taken the next step. I've hired an attorney. This situation has gone beyond just an inconsiderate neighbor being difficult. This is a legal battle, one I refuse to lose. I will fight to reclaim what is rightfully mine, and hopefully, put an end to his relentless antagonism once and for all. Early on a quiet Saturday morning, around 5 a.m., while I was sound asleep, my neighbor took it upon himself to rip up my yard, without a word of warning or permission. It was my day off, a time I should have been able to rest, completely unaware that outside, my property was being torn apart. Not only did he destroy my yard, but he then began parking his vehicles right along the property line, so close that anyone stepping out of the car would have no choice but to set foot on my land. I captured everything on video, thanks to my Google Nest camera, with clear timestamps proving his actions. I saved the footage and immediately forwarded it to my real estate attorney, who is now reviewing it to determine the next legal steps. Determined to hold him accountable, I reported him to building code compliance. His driveway modification wasn't just an invasion of my space, it also required a permit, one I was certain he never obtained. First thing in the morning, I planned to follow up on my complaint, making sure officials took the necessary action. As my attorney and I dug deeper, an even bigger issue emerged. There was no official survey on record. The county didn't have one. The lender didn't have one. Even the title company and home ownership insurance provider came up empty. It was as if my land's legal boundaries had been erased from existence. Frustrated but determined, my attorney contacted the builder, who also had nothing. With no other option, he pushed my lender to commission a new survey. Once the survey confirmed my suspicions that my neighbor had, in fact, stolen part of my land, my attorney wasted no time. A formal legal letter was sent, making it clear that this was no longer just a neighborhood dispute, it was a legal violation. The very next day, my neighbor had no choice but to undo his damage. A crew arrived, tore out the concrete, and returned my land to me. The most shocking part? He admitted everything. He knew exactly what he had done and even had the nerve to apologize. I have no doubt that he only did so because he was backed into a corner, terrified by the legal consequences. If he thought I was just going to let him get away with it, he severely underestimated me. But it's not over yet. My attorney is now pursuing financial restitution, ensuring that he not only pays for the damage he caused but also covers any back property taxes owed for the 6 months he illegally occupied my land. This entire ordeal has exposed him for what he truly is, a manipulative, narcissistic bully who thought he could take advantage of a single woman living alone. He tried to intimidate me, belittle me, and even complain about my trees being too dry, just to stir up conflict. But I refused to let him win. I remained calm, composed, and strategic, and now, after months of his antagonizing behavior, he's finally the one avoiding me. I know better than to believe that his silence means he's given up. He's likely regrouping, plotting his next move. But I'm ready. This weekend, I'm building a fence, one high enough that he'll no longer have any view of my property, any access to my yard, or any ability to meddle in my business. And just in case he's foolish enough to try anything again, I have my security cameras watching. I even sent him a still shot from my footage, complete with a timestamp, as a reminder that I have every single detail of his actions recorded. There will be no gaslighting, no manipulation, and no escaping the truth. This fight may have started with stolen land, but in the end, I've taken back more than just my property. I've taken back my peace.